All right, let's get into it. Today we're tackling a question that honestly comes up every single Ramadan. It all starts with a specific hadith that seems to fly in the face of what we all normally do. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the hadith that causes all the confusion. Then we'll lay down the foundation with the Quran's golden rule. After that, we'll uncover this really cool piece of history about two different adhans, see what the great Imams had to say about it all, and finally, wrap it up by figuring out how this all applies to us today. Okay, so let's dive right into the heart of this. This entire discussion kicks off with one single, very widely shared narration that I'm sure you've probably seen pop up on your social media feed. Let's set the scene. You're having your suhoor. It's the last few moments before you have to stop eating. You pick up your glass of water to take that last sip, and right then, you hear the azan for Fajr begin. So, what's the move? Can you drink it? Now, reading this, on the surface, it seems like a pretty clear green light, doesn't it? It sounds like, hey, you've got the glass in your hand, go ahead, finish up. But, as with so many things in Islamic scholarship, it's just not that simple. There's a lot more going on beneath the surface. The golden rule here is that before we can really dig into any hadith, we've got to go back to the ultimate source, the final word, the Quran. Let's see what the definitive rule actually is. And what's really key here is that the Quran gives us a super clear, non-negotiable cutoff point. And notice, it's not tied to a person's voice or an adhan. It's tied to a physical event, something you can literally see in the sky, the moment of subh sadiq, or what we call true dawn. So, digging into this a little more, scholars, based on narrations, tell us there are actually two types of dawn. First, there's the false dawn, which is kind of like a vertical trick of the light that shows up and then vanishes. You can still eat then. But the real deal, the one that matters for fasting, is the true dawn. That's when a horizontal light spreads across the whole horizon and just keeps getting brighter. That's the hard stop. That's when the fast begins. Okay, so that brings up a huge question, right? If the Quran is so clear that the fast starts with the physical dawn, what's up with the hadith we just read about hearing the call and finishing your drink? Well, the answer is absolutely fascinating, and it's buried in a piece of history that most of us just don't know about. And this is the missing piece of the puzzle. This changes everything. Back in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, there wasn't just one morning adhan, there were two. You had two different muazzins for the morning. The first adhan was called by Bilal, and you can think of it like a community-wide alarm clock. Its purpose was to wake everybody up for night prayers and to start their suhoor. It was called before the true dawn. The Prophet himself laid it out perfectly clear. He said, Bilal gives the adhan when it is still night, so eat and drink until Ibn Maktoum gives the adhan. That second adhan, that was the one that signaled that true dawn had arrived and fasting had begun. This context is the key that unlocks this whole thing. So when you put it all together, it becomes obvious, right? That hadith about finishing your drink, it was talking about Bilal's first adhan, the wake-up call. It was basically a 5-minute warning that the real deadline was approaching, not a green light to go past the actual deadline once it had arrived. Okay, so now that we have that crucial bit of history, let's see how the heavyweights, the great legal scholars of Islam, put all of this together. When we look at the giants of Islamic law, Imams Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmad, they are all on the exact same page on this fundamental point. There is a solid consensus. The fast begins at the physical appearance of true dawn, period. If you eat or drink after that moment, your fast is invalid and you have to make it up. No ambiguity there. Now, while they all agree on when the fast starts, there are some slightly different takes on that specific vessel in hand hadith. The overwhelming majority say, look, this obviously applies to the first pre-dawn adhan of Bilal. Some modern scholars have looked at it as maybe a very specific allowance for someone caught off guard in a moment of genuine uncertainty. But notice what's key here. None of them interpret it as a free-for-all, a general license to just keep eating after the prescribed time has clearly begun. So let's bring this all home. What does this mean for you and me today with our phones, our prayer apps, and our printed schedules? Let's make this super practical. Okay, if you remember one thing from this entire explainer, let it be this. Today, we only have one Fajr Adhan. And that single adhan is the equivalent of the second adhan from the Prophet's time. It's not the warning shot, it's the signal that the time for suhoor is over and the time to fast has already begun. So here's your 4-step guide to a totally stress-free suhoor. 1. Trust your timetable. Find a reliable calendar from a local masjid or Islamic center. That's your most accurate guide. 2. That time listed for suhoor ends, or sub-sadiq, that is the hard stop. That's the deadline. 3. The best practice, just to be safe, is to stop a few minutes before that time. It's a precaution. And finally, number 4, understand what the adhan you hear today actually means. It's a call telling you that the time for fasting has already started. Following this is simply the most cautious and correct way to make sure your fast is 100% valid and to remove any doubt. You know, this whole topic really leads us to a much bigger, more profound question. Do we just grab one sentence from a hadith and take it in total isolation? Or do we do what scholars have done for centuries? Seek to understand its full context using the Quran and all the other evidence we have. This example is a brilliant reminder that our faith isn't just about following rules blindly. It's about understanding the deep wisdom and beautiful context behind them.